Okay, we're live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest, a returning guest. This will be our third in a series that's titled MKUltra, Music is the Weapon. His name is Hans Utter. Last name is spelled Utter. And he's done really significant research into this. I've heard him a number of times on Gnostic Media with Jan Irvin. And so he just has really stands out amongst other researchers in this particular field. So I'm glad to have him back. We do have a lot of audio, so he's got slides and audio. So if you're listening to this on my podcast, William Ramsey Investigates, you can go to Rockfin and watch a lot of these live, or you can watch them live, or you can watch what's left over after we've done the live show. So you can check that out on Rockfin. My podcast is just entered, according to Listen Notes, entered into the top 0.5% of all podcasts in the world. So that would be the top kind of 30,000. If there's 3 million podcasts, it would be the top 30,000. So it was a nice kind of marker that happened this week. But again, this will be the third part. So it would be the third episode. And I'd recommend, if you haven't listened to 1 and 2, go back and do that. So Hans Utter, welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, William. It's great to be here. And congratulations on your milestone there. So
yeah, not bad. I definitely did some work. I'm at about 850 episodes, so people can go back through. Once I get to a certain, I think I probably should do it sooner or later, but actually just have a graph of all the shows so people don't have to scroll through. I don't think iTunes is really set up well to look through podcasts with a lot of different episodes. Podcast Addict actually is much better for that. You can scroll through and search. But iTunes is not. It really just shows you the most recent, like 5 shows. And then you have to kind of reload and stuff like that. But some of those are timely. Like there was this guy I did a show about, he was a kind of a cult leader in Canada, and he just got arrested. And the book was about his kind of sexual predations. And then he finally got arrested. His name was, oh gosh, I can't remember. It's Dark Oasis is the book by... who was the author? It was Jason Horsley. So people can check that out. But yeah, so sometimes they do these shows and then they come back into the news. But this topic is always of interest to people. This is like one of my more listened to series for sure, is this MKUltra analysis of the 60s and behavioral modification or social engineering that you've done on. So kudos to you. Like, people are definitely interested in this material.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, and one of the things that I sort of came to as a sort of understanding was that the whole sort of system, you know what I mean, that's been implanted. I mean, a great example is COVID, right? That mass hysteria, using the same principles, right? I mean, and you can look at the whole Corona thing as like, as like 100 9/11s, right? Because you think about 9/11, how much, that created all this fear and stress, right? But it still was a one-point event. Now there were, various, terror incidents, many of which were completely fake, a bunch of stoners, homeless stoners, and the FBI is like, hey, you guys want to, all right, dude, hit that bong, let's blow up the White House, seriously. Right. And they did that, but, people are mentally ill. But think about Corona. I mean, every single day, right, you have this stress, you have this social isolation, you have this pressure, you have this fear of getting sick, you have all these restraints, for me, you have fear of like what happens if I go on the airplane and they want my card. I'll be like, here it is. Yeah, right. Okay. Like I thought, what I'm saying is that this kind of, think about that. That's a stress and a trauma, right? That is going to influence, affect, and allows for the programming of behavior, right? So, because when you're under, one of the things that you see with this whole, development. I mean, even go back to George Esther books, right? Starting from World War I, creating hypnotically programmed, people, right? To create people with trigger personality, MPD or whatever, or just submerged personalities, right? Just to even act as couriers. But this research, you have Tavistock Institute, right? So that's looking at shell shock, trauma, right? So, and then you have the National Institute of Mental Health, right? And so all these are interconnected organizations and different kind of deployments, right, or strategies, right? And that can go into, you have the Stanford Research Institute. You've got, of course, Millbrook, right? How about Millbrook? This
Right.
Leary, that's one of those things where you look at the whole development. You have these figures. I think before I was talking about like Ken Kesey, right? One who flew over the cuckoo's nest. But he was very important as a cultural symbol, right? And then you tie that to Jack Nicholson, the actor. So all this is influencing the mind, the consciousness, the world, right? Especially because you think of it that our atmosphere, our cultural space is, a lot of it is media, television,
Right.
music. Right. Think about it. I mean, have you ever like been outside that for a while, right? Like say when I was in India, for a number of years, like I missed out on a lot of things that are happening in the US. I mean, I guess I like that, right? But I was really out of that world. And I come back to the United States and it was really, I could almost feel it, right? But then you re-enter it, you don't want to necessarily be, it's kind of like, culture shock. You don't want to be in that permanent state of dislocation.
It's like a psychosphere. The American psychosphere is like shattered or haunted or something, like with all this stuff, like all that stuff you're talking about, the fear of death or COVID, they really ramped up everything. It was all kind of MK Ultra type of behavioral manipulation. And the guy who's now just become the chief of staff for Biden was this guy Zentz, who was the head of the COVID response, and infamously got on TV. It says, if you don't get your shot, you're going to go through the hospital in a wave of death like you've never seen. Like he literally zapped people with the mind control, literal fear of death. Like that statement that he made will, I hope, reverberate on into the future, because a lot of that stuff never happened. So they really were pushing people to get this, toxic shot. But yeah, the last 2 or 3 years really were incredible. The isolation and stuff and the fear of death. Yeah.
Well, and how many, think about that. Small businesses closing, right? Like for me, and I promise I'm going to get my online stuff, my publishing going. But I do music stuff. I do concerts, whatever. There's no concerts. I mean, I did fine, but it's still, but I know a lot of other, people really got devastated by it. Some people did not leave their house for 2 years, but then, and I always, think of that, bring out your dead, that Monty Python, bring out your dead, that's what I first started, it reminded me of, if anyone's seen that, I'm talking about that.
That skit from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That's what.
Yeah. So, but that's what it was like at a certain time. But then it's, one thing that research that was done, right? You find, like, going back to the United Nations initiatives like mental hygiene, right? And then you've got psychological topology, Kurt Lewin. You've got what's his name, the MKULTRA Dr. Ewan Cameron. You have all these good Irishmen, good Scotch. He's a good Scotchman, right? That was really pushing this stuff, and that ties back to Tavistock. That ties back to eugenicists, British eugenicists, and all that stuff, right? H.G.
Cameron was the head of the World Psychology Council or something. Like, he was not some kind of bit player. He was at the top of the psychology profession, and doing horrible stuff.
Well, psychiatry, really. And he was the the lovable, charismatic grandfather, this big dude, very jovial, whatever. And but he was doing all this stuff. But some of his early work, was, again, laboratory, mind control laboratory with the captive population. We have a couple examples of this. You have, of course, the Soviet system, right? So you have a captive population where you can completely control what's said, what people can say, censorship, or, more extreme, also creating cells, right? Which is a little bit what you had kind of developed during COVID, where people will report other people, right? Even having the kids report the parents, right? Like 1984, or the Soviet Union. But so he worked, Germany, post-war Germany, and that was where a lot of stuff was tried out in terms of cultural transformation. Into like the Beatles just happened to be playing right in Hamburg, right in Germany, right. So all this stuff was, going on. But Cameron really worked with that, right? This whole psychologically remodeling the entire culture. And one thing he talked about, as I mentioned this before, but this psychological group, collective psychological field, right? So you're in a psychological space. And this was studied quite a bit. And this psychological topology was a way of modeling populations based on types of psychological states and profiles, and how they was a mechanism could reinforce each other collectively. Now, that would sound kind of like new agey, like, oh man, there's some bad vibes. Well, yes and no, right? You and Cameron, I mean, you talk a lot about even music, right? This research of insanity. Like, for example, if you have a cult leader, Jim Jones, this person is insane, or maybe he's just doing what he's supposed to do because he works for the CIA, right? As part of one of these programs. But people follow the leader, they become like that, right? If you hang out with people that are very angry and take meth, there's a chance it's going to start changing your personality. Okay. And you could, and so what I'm trying to say is that this is not just, even though this research has sort of been submerged, and these books are nearly impossible to find. It's sort of like the research on planned obsolescence, where you see corporate journals saying we should implement planned obsolescence. And then suddenly you don't see any more literature on it. But guess what? It's implemented. You know what I mean? It's not like that. There's no nothing, give me a break, man. Anyone has any modern product, you know what I mean?
Right. The light bulb. They actually had light bulbs out there that like the last 10 years, but they don't want you to have those. They want you to keep rebuying those. Yeah. So that's just one example. Or your car.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that, so think about just adding that into creating states of tension, right? That are useful, and trauma. You have a type of trauma. You have sort of release within that trauma. You have your authority figure, which is like, or maybe you have your good cop, bad cop, whatever, which is like your programmers, which is like your cult leader, which is like your rock leader, which is like your Charles Manson, which is like any one of these. Baba Yad, right? That was another. They had a rock band, right? The rock band for this.
Right, that's right.
Yeah,
the Yod family, I think it was called, or Father Yod.
Yeah. And this guy, what was this guy? He went in the background, military intel, and then he got drunk driving and he killed somebody, right? Oh, then guess what? Yeah. Guess what his next gig is? He becomes this peace and love guru. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, here's your assignment, dude. You want to go to jail, or you want to become a guru? But it was kind of,
he had like a really conventional name. It was like John Baker or something like that, like almost like John Smith. But he had been in World War II. He had killed Japanese people. Like, he had a number of kills on his war record. So yeah, he was definitely something else.
Yeah, and
before Father Yod. Yeah.
Well, I think there was another. He may have like killed someone in a bar brawl too.
No, I think you're right. He did. It was actually in the paper. I've actually seen that article that he had killed somebody in a fight. It was over it was like a lover's squabble about a woman. He killed a guy. He was a big dude. He was like 6'4".
Yeah, and he's just like gentle guru. Yeah,
right, with the beard and everything, but his background is super violent. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was and it was like. But this thing, with their band, their psychedelic rock band, and it was a pretty, as these movements go, it's pretty small scale, right? But it was like another Manson 2.0, another one of the things. And, the funny thing with the Baba Yod, though, is the Riyadh, which is that connects with like, name of one of the names of the Sephirot, the Kabbalah. Right, but he did some kind of yoga, and they'd take a couple hits of weed and some kind of free love, but. But even at the end, like, he was completely discredited, but there's still this hardcore group of followers, and he's like, he's connecting with God by doing like parasailing, and he crashed.
That's how he died. That's how he died. But he was familiar with Golden Dawn magic, so he knew a lot of these kind of magical rituals and things like that. So that was kind of his kind of way to have power over this. But he was definitely a polygamist, whatever. Like at a certain point, it was like Joseph Smith. So there's all my knowledge, but guess what? I'm allowed to have sex with all of you women, whoever I want, when I want. So,
well,
that's one of the things.
Well, Joseph Smith, he's kind of an archetype there. He, is out there, well, he's sort of a almost like a carnival huckster, kind of a, medicine man, whatever, flim flam man. He does dowsing, and then he took mushrooms, started taking magic mushrooms,
really?
And then the golden tablets,
Right. Oh, it makes perfect sense. I didn't know there was a mushroom connection to him, but he was involved. He was involved in classic magical behavior, which is this whole ritual where somebody puts a stone in a hat and then reads something and puts it down. It's the exact same technique that Dee and Kelly did, and Crowley and Newberg. The exact same technique. And they actually, you can go see his like shoe stone in one of the Mormon museums. So the guy, that book is like a received book. The Book of Mormon is like from some magical event. He claims it was an angel gave it to him, but there's actually differing Genesis stories of that book, which is very telling. There's like two different stories that don't make sense. One is that Moroni gave him the book, right? And then there's another that he got it through this whole, stone in a hat type of thing. So why are there two different stories?
Yeah, and then of course, no one's ever seen the golden tablets, but then also a little bit there in the language, moron. Oops, I'm sorry, Moroni.
Right.
It's I don't
moron
know.
I right. Do you think it's a mistake? Like he was having a game on people. Have you ever read the court affidavits about Joseph Smith when he was younger?
Go ahead.
They're really fascinating. If you can find them online, they're really something else, because they were exposing him as kind of like a snake oil salesman. And this one guy said, well, Joe Smith said that there were these plates down in Philadelphia and it would be a 2-hour ride. So I said, yeah, I want to go find those gold plates. So I got in my horse together and carriage and I drove him there, and we looked for the plates for 15 minutes. He said, I don't think they're here. And then he wanted to go visit a friend. So I just took him over to visit a friend who was nearby. And then I drove him home. And by the time I got home, I realized there were never any plates for me to get it. He used this, promise, this allure of finding this old plates among the old American ruins as a pretext to get me to get on my horse and carriage and drive him for 2 hours. So he was putting people together like a, scoundrel before his whole religion started.
Well, then they also had very violent relationships with some, people in the towns. That's why they had to, they weren't just, they were persecuted, but they did their share of, pretty sketchy things. And, but again, you find, and, one thing you'll find, even you look at Joseph Smith, you look at Charles Manson, you look at Baba Yod, you look at Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, you go other access to sex for men, right?
Right.
Men get access to sex, and that's kind of a big part of the Manson thing. He was providing girls for Brian Wilson, for the Beach Boys, for various people.
That was one of his skills, right? That was one of Manson's skills, was getting these women, and he knew techniques to really get. He said, "I'm your dad now," so he would go in the place of the family, like call me father, or call me your daddy, or something like that. Like he really knew certain techniques. That's why the family had such a retinue of women,
Yeah. And so we'll get into this a bit later, but you look at another Smith, Roger Smith, right? So Manson's parole officer, who had many very odd and sketchy connections, and he was connected. So the National Institute of Mental Health, right? So that is very important organization for some of these programs, right? And I mentioned the mental hygiene and various other types of programs that were run But so he worked for the program for newly released felons, right? And so Manson, who was, he was, one of those guys you probably wouldn't want to meet. You know what I mean? He was not a friendly guy. He was a hardcore lifetime criminal. You know what I mean? And was an intense, kind of balls to the wall, hardcore dude. And through, there's some evidence that it was through this program, that his parole officer introduced him to LSD, and he became a totally different person. He started seeing himself as this Christ-like type of figure, and based on this Heinlein, seeing his parole officer Roger Smith as like forget, he gave him a name, Jubilah, like this Masonic name. He used to call him Jubilah Smith.
Jubilon. Jabulon or Jubilon is like the god in Masonry or whatever.
Yeah, and that's what Manson called him. Wow. But it was like his, based a stranger to strange land, which ties into what? Right, Stranger to Strange Land, Robert Heinlein. That you have certain books, right? I mentioned in the first show we did, right? Steppenwolf, right? That book Steppenwolf by Hermann Hesse. So it was, just make sure my heater's on. It's really cold down here.
Right, but Heinlein was a key figure too, and that's, I think, Manson named one of his Valentine after the lead character in Heinlein. Like, it wasn't random.
But there's a lot of stuff with, I think they call, there's various things in the family that were directly taken from Heinlein.
Oh wow!
They had like some kind of name for these units or pods, or I forget to say, but there were some number of references to the family practices and culture, on that ranch.
Because Valentine became a cult leader, didn't he? He was from another planet, but then he becomes a cult leader in the book. And what's surprising about that book is how much philosophizing is in that. Like, it really is almost like a philosophy book. There's all kind of ruminations about how different he is and how people admire him and all this stuff. Valentine Smith, right? Isn't that it?
Yeah, well, in Heinlein, he has another book, which I used to really be in science fiction when I was a kid, and I forget the name of the book, but it's about this book. It was talking about a Luciferian book, because I remember I got it. It was this book club. I got it as like 7th or 8th grade or something. But in this book, it's like Satan or Lucifer is actually God, and God in this world has to be overthrown, and this whole thing, and it really makes you get on the side of Lucifer or Satan as he overthrows the evil tyranny of God, the false God, which is straight, of course, Gnostic doctrine. But that's like the science fiction book. But that book, Stranger to Strangeland, and then of course even the Childhood End, Arthur C. Clarke, the sci-fi was a big part of that. And then Steppenwolf, the theater for the madman only, right? And then then you have, of course, the beat on the road, sort of, things like that, right? This turn on, drop out was just another step up from On the Road, and they're all directly connected. You have the protagonist of On the Road, William Cassidy, Dean Moriarty, right? Where does he show up? On the magic bus, running the one of those that one thing I played last time, that the butcher during the acid test, where this like guy's hiding around the room, you can't tell where he is, and all the people are on acid. I'm the butcher, you don't know where I am. That was Neil Cassidy, right? And the guru of the beats, right? Because these guys were, Allen Ginsberg, was sort of this, homosexual drug addict, kind of decrepit. I mean, he wasn't like a brawny macho guy, but and Jack Kerouac, he was a football player, but he was still kind of innocent, but then you had Neil Cassidy, who was this guy who'd worked as a pimp, who was, had this real intense kind of life, but he was also very, powerful, charismatic, very good looking guy, and so he became like a figure. He was like the representative for the beats of this ideal man. Right. Neo, like
but the kind of darker side, right? Moriarty is the antagonist of Sherlock Holmes, so he was Cassidy was he was a scoundrel. He was really kind of a scoundrel. Like, he used to work on the train and take people's money and give back change that wasn't correct, and he was kind of like the Tune In Dropout, just like you said. On the Road is really about that, stealing cars and going across country, right?
Yeah, and he was a speed freak too, man. Shit.
A speed
But
freak, yeah. You can see him on one of those that like he's scratching his hands. It's like a very meth type of behavior of scratching yourself on that. There's a picture of him on that bus or a clip of him on the bus doing that. So he's probably just speeded out. I think he died young too, right? He kind of burnt the candle at both ends.
yeah, I think he was
That's
just
him.
he ended up he was like wandering train tracks and just died of exposure or something. You
Yeah,
know,
something really crazy. Yeah.
but he was on the magic bus, man. You know, he was
Yeah.
he was I mean, Ken Kesey was there sort of as the mastermind or whatever, but the real interactive guy, right? The one who really almost the recruiting, I mean Kesey was there, right? But the guy, his what do you call it? His henchman, the guy really doing a lot of stuff was Neil Cassidy, right?
Right.
AKA Dean Moriarty and On the Road in those other books. But I'm showing that this is it all connects and ties together. But of course,
Right. He only made it to 41.
holy,
Cassidy. I thought he was older.
oh
Yeah.
my god,
Yeah.
because dude, I was watching some of those videos recently of of him on the bus, and I thought he was like in his 50s.
Yeah. No.
He looked like
He looked like he prematurely aged, didn't he? To me.
yeah, he was. And I don't know if I want to play that. Well, I guess I'd have to I have to play that video again, that acid test stuff. But that stuff is really, we can keep the PowerPoint down so it's not. No, you just put the video
Whatever you want. Sure. You want me to put the video? Do you want to have the video of the audio stuff?
No, we can just have us talking. Yeah, I'll
okay, good. Whatever.
Or I can stop share, right? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, what you can do too. Yeah, I think that you're able to.
Finally got my lighting here.
But yeah, Cassidy. So it all adds together. So all of these books are fictional books influencing real non-fictional culture, right?
Yeah, and that's always been, I mean, art literature, but then this also goes back into, how, unlike any other time in human history, right? Like our culture, our experience is really, a lot of it is artificial, not that, look, books would have seminal influence, but it's a lot more inner, right? Interior. And in one of the techniques, the movie The Parallax View.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
This is I was pulling together some material and I came across a number of accounts of people, right, who were in these from military, usually, who were in some of these types of mind control, special operative type of scenarios, right? And one thing they did was showing these video stuff, like the film. Could you possibly bring that up?
Do you want me to bring up Parallax View, the movie?
Just that there's a clip where he goes in and they have like that mind control sequence.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. Do you think it's on YouTube?
Yeah, it should be. It should be that clip. Okay. I guess I could do
it. Parallax View test. There it is. It's right here. The best scene. Let me pull it up. Hold on.
Make sure it's the one where he has all the stuff.
I think it's like the one where they have like there's like like different things pop up and they're talking and babies crying and that kind of thing, right?
They're showing like him the video, like he's getting the initiation. Here we are. Yes, this is it.
Make yourself comfortable.
Can you make it full screen?
Be sure to place each one of your hands on a box on either side of the chair.
How do I do that?
Making sure that each one of your fingers is on one of the white rectangles. Just sit back. Nothing is required of you except to observe the visual materials that are presented to you. Be sure to keep your fingers on the box at all times.
Let's try this.
All right? I hope you find the test a pleasant experience.
You guys stop it there, but it continues.
All right, it just gets darker and darker, right?
Yeah, it gets darker and darker. And so even going back to that, I'm a little puppet, and we maybe managed to listen to that thing. So what, one of the things that came to the fore was that, okay, well, number one, when you look at these accounts of people that were, even in the 50s, 60s, inducted into the special military training branches of this thing, where they're creating this sort of selective memory, creating sort of MPD, triggered altered personalities. One of the things is that number one, they try to make sure that you forget your programming conditioning period, but showing videos with neural electrostimulation, but much more. The accounts are kind of similar to that, but they'll say like parents, and it's showing their parents being decapitated, showing you killing your parents, showing like a puppy, then showing like really, juxtaposing these images and your brain and the words, right? So the word itself, that word, that printed text, right? That having that power, and then the subliminal stuff embedded, and really sort of flipping everything around, and then creating this, the state, right? The state of programming, and creating the dissociation of the personality, right? And so, and the accounts, I can look some of those up, but I was reading them. They're really, really interesting and disturbing. But you also have the music, right? So when you have like the I'm a Little Puppet, what you have is, you have the music. They have stuff that's based on even traditional, folk songs or children's songs, right? And then you get these associations with that, right? And then they become triggers, right? So you're using this as a triggering, and with the hypnotic induction, right? Hypnotic induction, all these other things. And I may go into that in detail of that song a bit later. But that thing, one of the things is to produce a sense of illnesses, to make you think you have illnesses also that you can't be free from, which is another part of that induction, right? So to have these different things, or these blockages, right? So just in the case, say, of the mind programmed assassin, those blockages, these different segments of the mind, there'll be parts that are designed to commit suicide, right? If you are going to reveal this, or if you cross, there's like firewalls. So externally, if there's a hypnotist trying to access that programming, right, that will trigger another program. But what I want to say is that on different scales, these things are sort of analogous, right? There's obviously the intensity of going through, if you're becoming a Jason Bourne type of mind controlled assassin, or whatever, which I think there's a lot. You've seen those movies, right? I think there's a lot in there.
No, there is. There's a lot of flashbacks and split personality, amnesia, all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So somebody's I always think of, when I watch parallax view too of A Clockwork Orange, which is like the Ludovic method or some Ludovico method, which they're putting on to Alex DeLarge, I think was his name, the character's name. You know, same kind of thing, technique, keeping his eyes open. It's really one of the more incredible visuals in movie history is him, you know, being shoved in the theater with his eyes unable to close and forced to watch all that stuff. It's the same type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Jan was using that as the show picture, and I said, "Dude, I didn't say take that because it's really disturbing, man."
It is. It really is. Even this stuff is disturbing because you could be watching this on like a controlled environment by a psychiatrist, but then you watch regular TV. How much different is your regular TV from just an outright behavioral mind control, you know, film like what's this main character is being put through? I don't know. That's where things can get real scary.
Well, then that's the thing is that, I mean, if you look at all these different techniques that are understood, right? You know, one of them being photic driving, right? So we have entrainment, right? Or you have a type of stimulation, pulse stimulation. This is entrainment where there's like a rhythm, right? Rhythmic source, a stimulus, and what happens is it's called your mind, your physiology can phase lock on that. You phase lock, so that this is something. It's entrainment is very complex. It goes to the cellular level. Okay. So it's I've heard a lot of people use this word and not use it correctly. They say, "Oh, we're being entrained." It's not entrainment. What it actually is, it was discovered by this Dutch guy, I think Van Neps, in like 16 something. But you put two clocks together next to each other, they'll start ticking in phase. The phases will align, right, of those clocks. You find this all over the place. You find, I mean, this is how a lot of these sound weapons work, right? Infrasonic sound weapons, you know, that, infrasound that's below, you know, the audible spectrum, because that's the frequencies your brain operates on. So that frequency, right, will come in your brain, and then it'll make you defecate. It'll make you have intense rage or intense fear. It'll make you have intense de-inhibition, whatever. You know, this stuff actually works, right? And that's from entrainment. Your brain starts to resonate with that frequency, even though it's an external input. And then you have also the Monroe Institute, right? Monroe Institute, where you're familiar with that, right?
I've never heard that before.
That's connected with all those like third eye spies and, you know, this and that of, you know, out of body. So this is the sometimes I get these blank where the people that remote viewing, right? So remote viewing was developed out of the Monroe Institute, which I've actually been there. It's up in Virginia, kind of near where they have the Walton's Farm, right near that area, right near Walton's Farm in Virginia, rural Virginia. So that these are, you know, techniques used, you know, for, you know, out of body astral travel, for remote viewing, right? And so the way to do this, and that you can buy CDs, right? So you can go through all these different courses, stuff like that. And the Institute is it's pretty weird. It's pretty cool, but it's a weird place to go there. Like I never saw anybody there. I guess there's one guy who's still like locked in the basement. He's really weird. You know, he was one of the former, I mean, maybe he's not weird. I didn't meet him. I just heard that. So take that back. But he's the guy who was doing this stuff, right, from the 70s or whatever. But basically, so how this works is you have left and right, right? You have what's called, we have dichotic hearing, left, right frequencies. And then if you play two frequencies, say if you play a 20,000 hertz and a 21,050 hertz signal, your brain, they'll cancel out, and your brain will start resonating with the 50 hertz signal. That's a way to access that brainwave frequencies, right? So you can go into like alpha state, delta state, and stuff like that. So like binaural beats. So that's one of the things that's out there, right? And so, but if you club that technology in, right, and then but the stimulus, like photic driving, light driving, so you have stimulus and a light, ding 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 ding, creates a rhythm. You know, when people have epileptic seizure, right?
Right.
And have you seen that thing that Brian Jinsum, you know, and William S. Burroughs, they were, you know, taking peyote or whatever, and the thing that spins around with like the light flashes. And
I forgot what it was called. It's not the cutout system. It's called something. They were using it. Yeah, I've seen picture of it. It's a circuit. It looks like the standard, the old. Oh gosh, there's a name for it. I can't remember right now.
It's like one of those. It's like one of those, almost like a piano roll. You know what I mean? But I made one at one point. You know, you can make one from a turntable. So you just take a turntable and you put your light on it, and then you set the speed, and it spins around, and then you.
Right. Brian Geisen, I think was
Brian Geisen. Yeah. So, but they were all. I mean, you know. But anyway, so all these techniques, right, and the drug culture, right, and then of course, we have a direct connection. The thing is, Burroughs, of course, resurfaces more in the punk rock era, right? He kind of skipped the beat and the hippie. He was not a hippie kind of a guy, really. You know, of course, Allen Ginsberg was there. You ever seen the interview of Allen Ginsberg when he's on the firing line with William F. Buckley?
No, but I should see it again.
Oh my God!
It's called The Dream Machine, right? The Dream Machine.
Dream Machine. That's it. Dream Machine. Yeah. But
let's see if I can bring this up. Here it is. No, but it is funny once you really read about Buckley and what he was really up to. It's funny that he was the so-called conservative voice. He may actually be much more authentic depiction of conservatism than people would think on the surface, actually. But yeah, he was. He was a Skull and Bonesman. He'd been in the Tomb, so you have this guy like supposedly the Christian. Voice is really just a guy somebody took a leak on, you know.
Yeah, but okay, yeah. Look at those guys; they look really nice, right? Kind of guys you like to hang out with.
Yeah, not really. Burroughs looks really scary there.
They look like they're like zombie movies, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
hey,
you know? Oh, I hate to do this. Is just a whim, but just for a little relief. Could you play Or I guess I could bring it up. Or could you play?
What is it?
Play the Allen Ginsberg on the firing line just a little bit.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it.
That's so funny. Yeah. But the funny thing is when you realize that this counterculture, right, and this, you know what I mean, they're not really as much as opposed as they seem, right? Yeah. So
let me see if this is it. You want to watch the full thing, or what do you want to do?
No, we could just. You just kind of
any particular
skim ahead. He's when he starts freaking out, maybe a little bit towards.
Okay, let me put it on live here. All right, let's do this.
One point he starts singing.
Is this all right? I'm
at the intro. Go ahead and play it. Yeah, that's fine.
He became a success internationally after publishing Howl and other poems in 1955. He has written several volumes that come right out of his copious notebooks and reached great critical acclaim with Kaddish, published in 1960. We're here to talk about the avant-garde. I should like to begin by asking Mr. Ginsberg whether he considers that the hippies are an intimation of the New Order.
New Order. Hoping it will be orderly and gentle, yes. Hippies is kind of a stereotype.
Yeah.
Generally a newspaper stereotype. So that it's hard to generalize, except to the extent that what is called the hippie movement involves an alteration of consciousness towards some greater awareness and greater individuality, which you might even sympathize with.
Yeah.
Then hopefully the future will see like a spread of that gentleness and consideration coming through politically and artistically and maybe even on television.
Not quite yet.
Well, it's slowly approaching. The problem, I think, with television, which is interesting. So before I came on, one of your, Mr. Stiebel, who is your helper here, producer, asked me not to say any dirty words, what he considered dirty words, on the program, which presents a moral problem, you know. It's a political problem.
Fast forward a bit, he starts singing, I think.
Let's get to this singing sequence.
But notice they talk about the New Order, right?
Right.
New Order. And
alteration of consciousness.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Like right there at the beginning.
maybe
Yeah, Howl is super graphic. I mean, they're probably concerned because they probably knew it was in Howl before he got on stage.
And he was a direct, leader. I mean, from the beat movement to the hippies. Is this maybe he did another?
I thought I've seen one where he's like singing with the tambourine. Is that the one you're talking
He's
about?
got a harmonium or something. So it looks like this one is. Maybe he was on there again
to kill themselves, but they I did not.
Maybe he was on twice then.
Yeah, this is kind of
because the other one is a lot more unstrung. Oh well, we could.
But it is interesting. Like he's an important component of that whole change in consciousness, and he had an interesting lifestyle. But Buckley, like the story about Buckley is from what is it? Crazy Days and Nights say that Buckley preferred dudes. So he was in public. He was the conservative voice, right?
Oh, really?
Me and Todd at Yale, yeah. But he preferred dudes, and on firing line he would say codes to his recent male paramour that nobody in the audience would know, but he and the dude would know. Like he would do little codes and things like that. So he wasn't he was not straight-laced. Do you want to get something?
I wonder if he had a session with Ginsburg before the show,
You never know. I mean, but like he was much more strange, and he had I think his dad was an oilman, and he had all kinds of intel connections and things like that.
Yeah, there's one, maybe it's when he's on with Care. They have very caustic. It's kind of weird because the one I saw before was, by the way, your video's off. I don't know if you know.
I know my wife is getting something from behind me. So.
Okay, no problem. But no worries. But the one where he I think maybe it's a little bit later, maybe it's he did, I don't know, maybe they really get into it and they're really like fighting. It's almost like this, like stage, like a puppet show. They're fighting back and forth, and then he starts singing Hare Krishna, and it's just really goofy. I think it may be when he's on with Jack Kerouac, but anyways. And Kerouac, really, Kerouac described, I think it was like 50, maybe 1960 or 59, but he said Allen Ginsberg gave him this synthetic mescaline. He said he never felt right the rest of his life. Wow. Said it did something to his brain. He never felt normal again.
Wow.
And I forget when that was, but he of course, Yage, right? Ayahuasca, right? The Yage letters, right? So that was William S. Burroughs' Question from Ayahuasca. That book. So this is where this quest he goes to South America trying to capture supposed to be the strongest drug. Okay, there you go. Yeah, here we go.
Are you ready? Let's play them.
And I think the cause of their paranoia, because their paranoia is our paranoia. It's a mirror reflecting system. The two images are just reflecting. The Hare Krishna chant. No, go ahead. Yeah. To the preservation of the universe instead of its destruction. Krishna returns in the Bhagavad Gita every time there's a flood, fire, original sin leading to atom bombs. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Okay, that's enough.
That's like the true culture change there, right there in America. The 60s, the birth of the child. I think he did that too, this kind of Eastern music at the Human Being in 67 in The Hate with Leary. They're on stage somewhere. Yeah.
Well, he helped inaugurate, right? And so he also was, he's kind of like the endorsement. You know what I mean? He's like your celebrity endorsement for the hippie movement. You know what I mean? Because
right.
And he had the big obscenity trial, so he was an internationally known figure. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he wasn't, he wasn't the establishment media didn't have that much of a contrarian relationship to him. He was sort of respected. Right? But obviously, Leary. These guys are given platforms like that to disseminate the LSD to peace and love. He looks like a garden gnome, like the camp comes to life. He's extremely irritating, his singing. And And that's what I remember. Henry Miller met the Beats. They came out to visit Henry Miller, the famous author, Tropic of
Capricorn, Cancer.
Yeah. So they went out to visit him at Big Sur, and he liked Jack Kerouac, but he said, he basically said, Ginsberg's Buddhism is insincere. It's a phony. But they were all directly linked with this, decision, this to promote this stuff, and that's where, you have quote unquote, fight the Soviets. I mean, I have a number of quotes where I may not read from, like William Sargent, who's like talking about Soviet mind control, and yet he's working at the Tavistock Institute, developing and deploying mind control on Western populations, right? Battle for the Mind, William Sargent, so it's like they're revealing it, and then they're also sort of
practicing it, right? They're exposing it, but also altering consciousness. This is exactly what he said. Like, whether he's a change agent, right? He is definitely part of the 60s change. Ginsberg is.
Yeah.
I always know William Sargent because that's who Jolly and West asked to show up at the Hearst trial. I recommend this great psychologist, William Sargent. It's like inviting like Mephistopheles over.
Or probably he was probably part of the programming, man. He probably oversaw the programming. He did his own programming. And that actually be a great tie-in back to the hate. So anyways, yeah, we can just a little bit more on this. So like Leary again, there's movements and things that like the stuff I talk about, I don't get like that wide exposure like Allen Ginsberg. Maybe I'm not as exciting. I need to grow a scrubby beard.
Yeah, you need to take up some insincere Buddhism.
Well,
get on and sing Hare Krishna.
Well, the one thing though with the 62 was like not bathing, right? It's healthy not to bathe. I mean, So, anyways, that's at least the Dead family. But the LSD, the dissemination of LSD. Again, you have all these direct movement. And of course, you have the 50s rock and roll. You have the shutdown. And so the 50s rock and roll, really starting to affect the nervous system, right, of the teenagers, of the kids, right? It's not that, okay, if you listen to it now, it's going to be bad for you, right? But I'm sure all of us, have you ever had an experience of hearing being at some type of a concert or music and just feeling the music and feeling like it was, doing something to you, maybe wasn't even beneficial? You ever had that experience?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I've been to some pretty loud concerts when I was younger. Now I don't go to them, but I was at Oakland Coliseum in 1999 watching Rage Against the Machine. It was something else. It was totally crazy. They had to like shut everything off. They didn't do an encore because the audience got put into some kind of weird state. Like the mosh pit was the entire floor of the Oakland Coliseum.
Oh, God.
Like they had worked people up with that music. Yeah, it was incredible. Talk about consciousness changing. That was it. And then they just turned on all the lights and everything stopped. It was almost like you got transported from one dimension to another.
That's very astute, man. That's a great, because I mean, that mosh pit, just to make a semi leap, but not really, you look at who one of the sort of introduction of this stuff, you go back to Alan Lomax, working for like Smithsonian or whatever, the Cantometric system, right? Going entire world survey, looking at different cultures, tribes, looking at all these different, very detailed analysis of, everything you think about a society, marriage, children, war, violence, mental health, all correlated with music, type of music, this thing, agrarian, primitive, cannibal, whatever. You know what I mean? Seriously.
Wow.
And it's all coded, and it's actually really an amazing, brilliant system. And it's one of those things that it kind of got quote unquote forgotten about, but it was all whatever you do with the data itself was all, it's not speculative data. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not some BS postmodern, it's like looking at, this particular, here's a tribe, right? That, that does body piercing, and then they have this kind of a lifestyle. This is their music. what are the characteristics, how many voices, what are the rhythms, what are the melodies like, all detailed analysis, not superficial. And with obviously he didn't with a team, he's supervising, but all this stuff is encoded. You can put this into a computer system. You can develop and model that. Look at the tribal. I mean, so look at the return to primitivism, like neo-primitivism, right? And of course, we can go all the way back to Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the noble savage, but you can go to the Romantic era a little bit. You can see how the Romantic era poets, like John Keats, they had long hair. You have Mary Shelley, Wordsworth. They were taking some drugs, a little bit. It's like free love, but this was like a tiny little group of elites. They'd have to be very good poets, right? English aristocracy, basically. Right. No, you know what I mean? But some of them had amazing, immense talent, John Keats, whatever. But the look, the feel, the lifestyle was another one of the components used to model the ready-made hippie social movement.
Right. Interesting. Right.
Okay. But then you include also lifestyle, tribal type of lifestyle, right? What was that? I was just watching a clip from Timothy Leary today. Timothy Leary, he's on, it looks like, unfortunately, I don't, it's on my other computer, but he was almost like a fireside chat, like really nicely filmed, almost like when they show the Hugh Hefner mansion, it's always like real, like soft light, and so he's hanging out, with all these young people, looks like in a very nice estate, right? And he's hanging out and he's talking about turn in, tune on, top out, don't go to college, take your shoes off, walk around in nature. Maybe he's basically on like a, okay, we can watch that.
Can we watch this?
Sure. That's it.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
We tell young people today, drop out of school. Because schools, education today is the worst narcotic.
Can you start it over?
Don't politics.
Yeah, this is the right clip.
This is for you too, right? The sitar's playing.
Don't know, man.
We tell young people today, drop out of school. Because schools, education today is the worst narcotic drug of all. Don't politic, don't vote. These are old men's games, impotent and senile old men that want to put you onto their old chess games of war and power. Drop out. Tune in with natural things. Take off your shoes. Get back in tune with God's harmony. Surround yourself with beauty and sacred objects. You can't get caught in the conforming, rote, lockstep, which we call American society.
There it is.
And he right there, no question what he's doing. He's saying the school. Okay, now we look at mind programming. We look at the stuff is not Dewey education, right? All the stuff, the education system. Certainly, there's stuff there, right? Education system has a certain degree of programming there, but yeah, now it's way worse than it was in the 1960s, way worse, right? I mean, probably, so, but he's just saying not even, well, you got a PhD, dude, right? You had a career and you taught at Harvard, and you're saying, don't go to just even look at the way that's set up, right? They have the apples, right? The Garden of Eden, right?
Good point. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
And that was the quote from which I there's some evidence that actually LSD was developed much earlier. Who's the guy that developed LSD again? His name
Hoffman, supposedly Hoffman.
Hoffman, yeah. But he said when I took it, it was like I got the apple of the garden of the tree of knowledge.
Wow.
He said I went back to the Garden of Eden, and that also what Aldous Huxley said. We want to go back to the Garden of Eden. It's like the tree of knowledge. So those apples are there, right? So. And again, you mentioned that father figure, you have that role, you have a weakening of the church, right? It's kind of like, well, it's not like anything. It's like that you have the Christian church being such an important bedrock of American culture that it's almost, whether or not you believe, it's still it's like those slots are still there. Those outlets are still there. You may be an atheist, but, Charles Manson, Timothy Leary, Baba Yad, Paul McCartney, John Lennon, Alice Cooper,
Goes on and on.
whoever.
Pulling away from the church, right? Yeah.
They're going to come as your Christ
Hippie
figure.
movement too. Yeah, the hippie
Jerry.
movement too.
Jerry, the father figures. So I was especially made a really important point about the absence, like the father. Then you have this, the war in the generations, right? You have the separation. You hate your parents, right? If you're over, I just thought about that today. I mean, that I remember when, I don't know if you remember this, if you ever experienced it, like you thought maybe you're like 22, 23, someone's 30, you think they're like ancient, he's like 30 years old. I mean, yeah, it's okay. It's been a minute. You know what I'm saying? I remember I was in Amsterdam or something. I met this guy who was like 30. I was like, that guy's so old. But a big part of the movement, right? You have these older people who are allowed in as their gurus, right? You've got Timothy Leary, you've got Allen Ginsberg, right? You've got Baba Ram Dass, you've got, whatever the psychedelic leaders. But don't trust anyone over 30, right? Kill the old. My generation, hope I die before I get old, right? It was literally, think about your mindset. You're that young, you're taking LSD or whatever. You feel like you're going to change the world. And maybe someone who's a little bit older would say, hey, dude, you may want to back off. You're kind of, you're not going to, you may be having fun now. 10 years from now, you're going to be homeless if you don't figure out what you're doing with your life and stop taking acid and, running around in barefoot in the park. Seriously. And that's what Tim Leary, who, on a 2,000 acre estate loaned to him by, this counterculture, Andrew Mellon or whatever, just go ahead and use my 2,000 acre estate. It's like that's a billionaire, not average person gets an estate upstate New York, not that far from New York City. Right. But, this is our counterculture. What are you promoting? Education. Don't vote. Don't be involved in politics. Don't politic. Completely remove yourself from that. Don't education. Your education is taking your shoes off, walking around in nature, and listening to that you got that looks like some like zombie dude playing the tambora, fake. He's like, then you got that girl looks like she's about 14, looks like a junkie. Look, but it's like a fireside
family member. Yeah.
But it's a fireside chat. I think it's in the Millbrook Mansion. You know what I mean? It's in this, So,
wow. I mean, it's really potent, like what they were doing with this. Not random. Like they were creating this kind of neo, not paganism. It's just return to kind of, I don't know, like a natural state of man or whatever, or something. Like the hippies really were, right? They were anti-civilization.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was that. My aunt was a wonderful, wonderful lady. But she, nothing but. I mean, she lived it the life. She from California. I said grew up there, and then ended up in Tasmania. Lived on communes. Back to nature. Had a maple syrup farm, living in a teepee in Canada. I mean, did really made a sailboat, went around the world. I mean, she did a lot of cool stuff, but she really lived that and believed. I mean, she still. I doubt she'll watch this, but I love her. She's great. But I mean, that was her life, and she did that. But it's there's is there something to be said for like traditional off the grid lifestyle for sure, right? But how many? I mean, getting connected with nature, but that I can take my shoes off. I mean, maybe not now. It's like 20 degrees below. If I take my shoes off, I'll be regretting it, right? But connecting with nature, there's nothing wrong. I mean, that's important, right? Going to a natural lifestyle, but the way it's done and is casting off society, right? So, and then there was and this whole, it's detechnologizing, right? Technologizing. Yeah, this you have like all this stuff. Then you have the population bomb coming out around the same time, right? You have this food. Food shortage, population bomb, we're going to run out of food. And then you have global cooling in the 70s, 60s, right? All this stuff, right? These are end of the world type of things. We have to, you know what I mean? So you're pushing instead of improving the system of technology, because the truth is that how many people are really going to run off the grid and not going to want to stay that way? not too many. How many of those communes really lasted?
I don't think not all of them. Yeah.
No, I
There's
mean,
some.
maybe some, maybe. But what I'm saying, you know, I mean, because it was I'm saying even though maybe some things make sense, but you don't. I could still walk around in nature and have my job and still live in the modern world. You know, they're not necessarily counter juxtaposed, but then at that stage in your life, you know, imagine how many people, what happened, you know, how many people just never got back, especially, you know, you're
Right.
all the time.
A lot. Some of those people never made it back. They didn't bounce out of it, I think. I think some people were acid casualties or just never really could reorient themselves to the pre-60s world, you know.
People that just never, you know, people that still, you know, nothing wrong with that for sure, but, you know, nice people probably. I mean, very nice people, I'm sure, unless they come after me for saying this, right? They're nice people, but you know, it's still, what do you think is happening with policy in the government right now? How this stuff is just going through this total derealization. How is this even possible? Like, you know, I mean, free all the criminals, give, you know, free drugs to everybody. Look at San Francisco, man. You know,
it's a disaster. It's a total disaster. Yeah.
It's, you know, so, but we can, well, that's, yeah.
As somebody who I grew up partially in San Francisco in the 80s, and the city isn't even the same. Like the kind of videos and stuff you see, it's just, you know, Escape from New York or Mad Max or something. Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
Warriors come out and play. You know that.
Yeah, you got to really be careful. People are stealing your luggage out of your car. They'll break your window for nothing. Total crime. People get shot. It's not good.
Yeah,
it's devolving. It's devolved. Actually, it's just sad.
Well, that's Devo, right? You know the group Devo.
Is that what that stands for? Is devolved?
De-evolution. De-evolution, right? De-evolution of mankind. So we're actually not evolving; we're devolving. Devo. But going back to that, so maybe we can play. We'll play one of some of those dead clips here.
Okay.
So, but it's a good time. So one of the things though you're talking about that Rage Against the Machine show, and so there were, you know, like Lucy and Mr. Rates. I mean, there are, you know, you have things like, you know, you have these berserker warrior frenzies, you know, and even sacrificial rituals to certain types of gods, right? Where people would just almost beat themselves to death, right? You know what I mean? These orgiastic frenzies, rites of Dionysus, right? You know, where they sometimes would dismember people.
Right. And they're playing tambourines and have music. So they're getting into a trance state or something like that.
Yeah.
And even some of these Muslims, like when they go on jihad, they literally have jihadi music for the violence. Like, I don't know what the words are, but it's like there's definite music for the holy war, you know? And some of these guys, like the guy at Boston, he's involved in the Boston bombing, he was playing that type of music to get into that alternate state to go on a rampage. He ended up getting shot.
Yeah.
Tamerlane, whatever his name. I mean, that's a whole nother story about how his intel connections and stuff like that. But yeah, he had that. He was playing that music when he was driving around Boston.
Wow. That's weird. And that, well,
Yeah,
what was that? That DC sniper, man. That's a weird case, right?
It's another weird case. Absolutely.
You know, and there's so many, you know, what you find, just like we look at Manson's parole officer or whatever, you got all these things. These people just get off. They just keep going until the, you know, like for example, the DC sniper, until the chief of police or whatever it was, you know, did the press conference with the MKUltra programming line, calling him back in. The next day they're found. Dude, these people, they're just crashed out, sleeping in a rest area.
Right. It's a duck in the noose, or he said some weird code word, right?
Yeah.
You will see this happen when the duck is in the noose. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Exactly.
There was like a weird, there was a tarot card too, right? Didn't they show the tarot card?
Yeah.
Like something out of Manchurian Candidate.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, but so let's just check.
Okay.
What I'm saying, like slam dancing and stuff like that, right? You can trace some of that stuff because I used to, do punk shows, you know what I mean? And that stuff it seemed kind of fun, but I mean, you get freaking hurt doing that too. Not that I'm,
Well, I was in that mosh pit, and there's probably some kids alive today who whose parents survived because I pulled them up and shoved them over the thing. Like there were people like I had been a lifeguard in college, so I knew the face of somebody who's in trouble. They don't show panic. It's beyond panic. They have a helplessness look. That's when you know you have to pull them out of the water. They don't like go panic. They go like this. That's like the real fear.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. No. It's different. They don't show. They're beyond like help something. They're beyond that. They go blank. Their face goes blank, and their eyes, they don't plop out of their head, but you can see their wide-eyed look when they look at you, and that's it. It's like you're out. You're done. So those people in that mosh pit had that. There was probably 4 or 5 guys I had to pick up and like, you're surf riding this or crowd surfing your way out of here. Because it was bad. Like there was people trying to get traction. So it was almost like a stampede. They were trying to get traction by shoving their feet into the ground, but they were on other people's feet. So then somebody else could not move. And so then it moved, the crowd was swaying. It was really something else, in a red light too. Like it was kind of like,
wow.
Yeah,
the red light, like the light.
Yeah.
That when you do that.
I wonder if that video is still around online, like of the 1999 Oakland Coliseum. I'll see if I can find it.
Well, there's stuff, example, we'll play a dead or interviews with these guys or you guys just talking here in a second. But we start with number 10. We're just kind of go from 10 down. But if you find that video, bring it up too. But, we could listen to the music, and see there could be stuff that's going on, right? To do that, right? So, like I mentioned,
imagine that, just that grind over and over again for 3 or 4 minutes. Very
creates a trance state, right? And that's the entrainment, right? So, and then this can also stimulate your nervous system, and then you go. I mean, of course, this idea of music and trance, right? Going into a trance state. It's been around for, there's all different kinds of trances. I mean, the book I have, a Trance Ritual and Rhythm. I was in the Northwest Himalayas, and they would have these specific drum patterns. That were like super esoteric and used to invoke trance of specific deities and to prove you're in trance. Like they had like molten metal. You have to put your head in this molten metal. If you're not really in trance, it's obviously you're not gonna. That's probably the last thing you're gonna be doing. So it's there. There's all different, Santeria, and that's where some of these rhythms come from. But there's other.
This is exactly what I was talking about. This is actually online. I actually found the actual concert I was in.
You want to just show that real quick before we play the dead?
Well, I'll pull this back. Well, like I said, where the lights are on and then it turns off. Listen to this. Watch this. You can see the mosh pit in the front. It's like all messed up.
That's insane.
That's the way it ended, man. The lights came on, music went off. I'm like somewhere like four people from the very front.
Man, I mean, You know, it's like there's things that are fun, right? Maybe like how about we have like some of the biggest roller coasters right here in Ohio. Is that really good for you? You know what I mean? Like you're going some of those roller coasters, like the intense roller coasters, those are like jarring up your spine, you know, your back, you know, they're not really you may get a rush or a thrill, right? You know, but you know what I mean? Does that seem like a help? Well, anyways, I sound like some
It just became, the most of those people were kids. They were teens or early 20s. So for them, that wasn't, it might not have been as, intense as somebody like my age. I would not want to even be close to that. I wouldn't even go to that concert. So, but at that age, maybe that's more fun. But you see that mosh pit? It was the whole freaking it's the whole
yeah,
entire
yeah.
bottom of the Oakland Coliseum. Yeah, it was really something else.
Well, that's see, there's you lose. I mean, the crowd becomes an organism. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's one part of I mentioned is this, you know, the distinction, right? You know, the individual programming and then mass programming. You know, dealing with the complex aggregates, right, of many different individuals, but then creating these systems, right? So, yeah, if you could play like clip 10 of that.
Let's do it.
All right.
Well, a lot of the people who show up who are increasingly part of a problem. I mean, the problem is that communities in a lot of America, as you know, are pretty nailed down tight. Yeah. And when you come to town, it represents, all those weird kids who want to get into chaos. And crack that stuff up, and they're normally controlled. Here's a context where they can get together, and they're sick of their old family. Right. They've got this real hunger for, okay, I don't have a ticket to the show, but I can go hang out. Right. And then there are the people for whom that represents a big threat. That's true. Well, and they come into conflict. But at the center of it, don't you think that there's it's a desire for something that's hard to find? Well, America doesn't have enough stuff that speaks to the whole person. I mean, people.
Okay.
So right, that works.
So then it goes to you.
So that's Jerry. So notice just to break this down, right? You know, because it sounds like he's stoned, but he's very intelligent, articulate. He said, "We come." You know, they're threatening. I have a whole bunch of other stuff, but they say they're almost they're destabilizing the fabric, especially these small towns, right? Wow. It said people that they want a new family. They want a new family. They have a desire for a new family, and they want to invoke chaos, to crack open chaos. Specifically using the word chaos twice. So it's chaos. It's not probably with a K or whatever, but chaos, a very specific thing he's talking about, invoking the crack open the chaos. And so but you're leaving your family, right? It's the misfits, the odd people. And you're going into this, and you don't even have to go to the show. You hang out afterwards, you hang out with the people. But he's saying very clearly, we're invoking, it's like they're cracking open a doorway. Right. It's a reality doorway. It's, you know what I mean? It's like Lord of the Rings or one of those movies, where they hit the stone and the molten I am Sauron, yeah. But they're they're saying it right there, right? Okay, keep going. With just the next clip.
No, but it is interesting. I mean, they are deliberate in their the culture they're bringing. It's not accidental. They've thought about it.
And they're using specific words. They're not saying just having, rocking out, having fun, invoking chaos.
Right. Invocation.
Open right. Chaos.
Yeah.
Very specifically. Very specifically.
It really is remarkable. And invoking is like a magical term. Like we're going to invoke or evoke. Like there's an invocational magic and evocational magic. So that duality is there. But the invoke is to bring from the outside, right? Evoke comes from the inside out.
Yeah. Because there are all kinds of craziness that we've all seen, which has destructed and fallen apart along the way. Well, we're hoping that it works. I mean, we're involved in a society which has undergone some really weird changes now. Right now, America is under the gun. It's being tested.
I think, and the Constitution is being co-opted in a big way. And this whole thing of the war and all this stuff is just, I think that America is in danger of losing its adventurous spirit in the cause of some kind of illusion of safety or,
And I'd like to point out,
substitute law and order there.
right, I'd like to point out that over the years we've lost a few, but our if you look at our our stats, we haven't lost any more than any other large group.
Oh yeah.
And by and large, the people in our group, in our family, are enjoying life a fair bit more than most other people.
Yeah, that's right.
And we have cultural depth. We get all kinds of stuff to chew on, to live on.
Yeah.
Well, that's our lives are interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot there to enlarge you.
Okay, so it maybe wasn't as you pause it there, maybe not as interesting, but there you're talking about. This is very subtle, a little bit, right? Talking about, so this is during the war, Iraq War, right? First Iraq War. We have war, but we're losing our adventurous spirit, and then this one maybe is not as interesting, but he says that also we have these. Let's substitute law and order. He's calling for the removal of law and order, right?
Wow, right.
Very subtly, removal of law and order. And then, but he's talking about war, and it says we haven't had that many more casualties in any large organization. Casualties in the whole dead family he's talking about, right? That whole movement, the casualties, almost like it's a war, whatever.
Like a conflict or something, right?
Yeah. Okay, you can play the next one.
Okay.
Wasn't as good, but.
It's interesting. It just reminds me, like when I was like at the hotel working with these guys, they spend a lot of time like doing drugs, but thinking and discussing. Because I remember I used to get the room service, I'd bring it up there, and Mickey Hart would be on a couch and it would smell like weed, but they had intelligent conversations like this. So it kind of reminds me, like, I would just see them briefly drop off food, but when I was in my teens, but they weren't like, some other band maybe that had like Jack Daniels and were doing a bunch of shots and acting totally debaucherous. They thought they were thinkers, probably still are, right? So,
absolutely, yeah. Go ahead.
They need something to celebrate, and they need a context in which to celebrate things. They need something that fills the void that's left by the bankruptcy of religion and so forth. They need real. Joe Campbell used to talk about this stuff, and there's a need for ritual and for real joy and real bliss, real fun.
And there always have been small road shows.
Yeah.
Provide that, and they're always regarded by the local authorities
with some suspicion.
With a lot of suspicion.
Yeah, right.
Wow, that's interesting. Who was the guy who made that? I don't know the voice. I can't.
I believe it's Jerry and it's two of the guys. I think he made it's definitely Jerry and is it Mickey Hart or Bob Weir? One of the not Phil Lesh though, but one of those guys. So, but they're saying, I mean, just right there, it's a quick thing, but ritual. So the space, what I said, the space filled by the absence of religion, we're there to fill that space. We're using ritual process, and they get more into detail. Elysian mystery rites. They talk about using actual ancient mystery rites in their shows and in the music. So, but they're saying point blank, we're using ritual. We're creating rituals to fill the space left by the void of religion. Wow. We are, and what I'm saying, they're not. They know fully. When I talk about the ritual process, separation, initiation, and return. Right, the actual process of transformation of ritual. They're aware of this, right? They're fully aware of it. I mean, they're not. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not if like Beyonce's like, when I play, it's like a ritual for my soul. I mean, I don't. Sorry, Beyonce.
Just the fact that they'd reference the Eleusinian mysteries is very telling. Like they are seeing themselves within that current.
And they're utilizing it, and they say, fill the void by the bankruptcy of religion. They are the new religion, right? We are the family. This is your family. Just like when the Brave New World, right? When you leave your parents, when you're just raised by the state, right? They're like a surrogate state nanny almost, even though they're cloaked in counterculture and always talking about the people against. Notice they're always constantly reference those against us, law enforcement authorities, those against us,
Right.
the mainstream society, law and order. This is bad. We are good, right?
They're always our side, right? Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Play the next one.
It's interesting. Wow. Did you know Crowley tried to conduct the Eleusinian Mysteries in London? Did you ever see those pictures of him?
I did, but you talk more.
I'll see if I can find it. I'll play this and see if I can find it.
Yeah.
It's kind of as a shared. Well, it's the Joseph Campbell. It's your little tiny hero's journey in everyday life.
Rite of passage.
And it's like a
I
fun.
use the war stories metaphor too, which is
Right.
It's part of the adventures that shape our character and give us stuff to talk about.
And where do you get adventures anymore?
There's almost no place.
I mean, we have a society that's trying to make sure that nobody gets any adventures because adventures are dangerous.
Yeah.
And danger is bad.
Yeah.
And I mean nobody's ever the rule is not written anywhere. It's not etched in any. But I mean that's the prevailing attitude of this entire society. Danger is bad. Oh no, don't do that. Don't have an adventure. That's dangerous.
Right.
And I mean your parents were always trying to get you to be careful when you were a kid. And that's just it's pervasive, all pervasive in this society. And there's a certain ilk, there's a certain kind of person who just can't live life like that.
No, everybody needs adventure, and everybody needs something.
Maybe not everybody does. I don't know. I do.
I think an awful lot of people do. I think a lot of people do. I mean, maybe not everybody.
Well, some people think that that's what's attractive to men about warfare. Is where else do you find people where you absolutely know you can trust them?
Yeah.
Because you have.
You have to.
And all of that is is removed. You get on you're actually doing something dangerous when you get in the car.
Got it.
So just again, this is not just superficial conversation, right? There's a ton just in that. You're not, even I jotted things down just to catch, but so they're, very much they're talking about rites of passage, right? So this is taking that anthropological theory, right? Margaret Mead, right? Margaret Mead, they're looking at this type of trance cult stuff in Bali, right? Margaret Mead, part of the Macy, major person in Macy conferences. Gregory Bateson, schismogenesis, working with Margaret Mead, looking at these primitive cultures, right? Invocating rites of passage, rituals, ritual process, right? Connecting cybernetics directly ties in with the Grateful Dead, the Whole Earth Catalog, cybernetic system theory. We go further, they talk about virtual reality and transhumanism, saying how great it is to live completely in this virtual world. This is the new LSD, is virtual reality. And this is in the early 90s. They're talking about this, which God knows. There's a hilarious video of, that the big charlatan fraud, Timothy Leary. But he I think it's in the 90s where he puts on these virtual reality glasses. And he's like, he just has like this ecstasy orgasm. And, they're not even back then. They saw.
Now they're amazing now. They are off the chart. Yeah.
But the way he's freaking out and he's just like, so amazing. You know what I mean? But anyways, I don't know if you want to chime in on that, but that was just one thing. Rite of passage, war stories, being in an army. This is like why men are drawn to war. Do you see that military metaphor coming up multiple times? Did you catch that? Or
I was kind of distracted trying to find the Crowley stuff, but yeah, no, I mean, I'm not surprised. And the other thing is like they are literate. They're referencing Joseph Campbell's The Hero with a Thousand Faces, all that stuff, right? So
War Story, rites of passage, and adventures, and our adventures are dangerous, right? Danger. Everyone's afraid of danger. This is a danger. This is a real adventure, right? So everyone says dangers are bad. Adventure is like warfare. They say, the where made you stop. Adventure is like warfare. Like men go to war for the danger and the adventure. So they're citing ritual passage. Hero's journey, though, is more than just a ritual passage. It's a transformation, but that's also a consciousness transformation. A quote unquote hero, right? Now, I don't want to put. They're not saying this, but if you look at the stuff I have, like with Pigpen and Ken Kesey, I have recordings of them talking about developing a mass hive mind among the merry pranksters and working on the hive mind and creating this mind organism, and how they're developing it and how they're conditioning this group mind that they built in all their hapless, partisans. You know what I mean? They're talking about it. So that, to me, that kind of adventure and danger doesn't, you know what I mean? There's a juxtaposition there that this is like, you know what I mean? Your true duty, and that's my brother, my younger brother, who's no more. He died, right? He had that mentality. The harder I live, the more hard drugs I take, the more danger I live, the more man I am. And that was the mentality, for a long time. The more drugs you are, the more man you are. You know what I mean? Like this, you know what I mean? Oh,
like the more danger you're confronting, right?
Yeah,
it's the hero's journey, but it's kind of a perverse hero's journey, right?
Yeah, it's like, look at Hank Williams, the great country singer, right? But okay, he was an alcoholic, right? He was a great singer. Now, he died, right? Because he had gotten off drinking, and someone gave him a couple drinks in a bar, and he ended up dying of alcohol poisoning same day, right? Is that something you want to emulate? Does that make him a hero?
No.
I mean, he just pissed away his talent. He had God-given talent. There's no denying that. I mean, maybe occasionally a couple drinks maybe would help him, but when you're consumed by the bottle like that, there's nothing heroic about that.
No, I don't think so. Or any drug, really. Consumed by any drug.
Any drug, LSD, or whatever it may be. But this is more, what I'm trying to specify is the drug is one thing, but they've created a family. They're pooling people. They're harvesting them from the small communities, extracting them like the Pied Piper.
So true. And isn't that kind of some of their imagery? Don't they have that kind of like skeleton with the flute, like kind of like a Pied Piper, right? Isn't that in their imagery? Yeah. So there it is. Yeah.
The rose, the Rosicrucian, and the alchemical symbolism, with the roses and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So we'll finish this clip.
Yeah. It just becomes like you're just totally opening my understanding up of the dead, which I didn't really know that much.
But you have to listen. I mean, you can even rewind it a bit. You have to listen very carefully to what they're saying. You know what I mean? Because every word, when they say ritual process, rite of initiation, it's you have to, just hearing that without other knowledge base to plug those terms into, you're not going to get the full meaning. So in a certain way, the average dead listener is not going to have the background to put all this stuff into context. So it's almost like in speak. It's, among the initiates,
Right.
You go and play it again.
Yeah, you're getting on an airplane. Oh, sex.
All of life.
Everything is dangerous.
Dangerous.
But we pretend that it's not.
That's right. Yeah, that's true.
Right. But to willingly participate in an adventure which has danger, that has to do with getting together with your fellows to celebrate,
right,
has a certain fraternity to it,
That's
which
true.
I think radiates in all directions.
The International Brotherhood of Crazies, because the pervasive attitude is that it's crazy to invite more danger into your life.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, and we don't look at it like that. We're just inviting adventure into our life, and adventure carries a little baggage.
Yeah, that's right.
But most people, from what I can see, make the logical step that Well, you're inviting adventure, you're inviting danger, and inviting danger is crazy. And so you have what we have is this international brotherhood of crazies.
Okay,
Wow.
pause it. So, but so in the context though, you go back, he's talking a lot about warfare, going to war. But think of rite of passage, hero's journey. Well, why should I invite danger in my life going to hear a rock band? You know what I mean? Like
A good question. I don't know why.
But then he says, they have this little sort of whatever, generic sort of homily, like, getting in a car is dangerous, sex is dangerous, flying. Okay, but what international brotherhood of crazies? Okay, inviting more danger in your life, but why should, unless you're cracking a porthole to invoke chaos, the invocation, the ritual aspect? What is the actual rituals that are being unfolded? They're very aware of rituals, right? There's all kind, so we could. I don't know. I have enough of Jerry's philosophizing.
You ready for more audio, or do you want to just?
Let's see. Okay. Well, we can just play one. We play one more.
Do you want to go to a different number than this?
I just keep playing.
28.
One more. Just play. Inventing new reality. It's fine.
Very symbols and the same stuff.
Well,
Symbolics. Uses symbolism.
Well, I think the real problem is going to be the thing of
Sorry, I think you went.
making it look like too much fun. I mean, there's already some crackling around the edges I've heard of people who are afraid that it's going to be, the whole notion is going to be treated kind of like a drug. Yeah, there will be certain limitations possibly, or possibly legislation or something. That's the whole thing. So this is where this gets really interesting, I think.
Yeah.
The whole idea, the virtual reality idea, if you progress it far enough, it's like starts to transcend things like language. You know what I mean? It's going to take experience beyond intellect in some levels. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The thing of being able to share somebody's reality, which has so far been a matter of what communication is about.
Cybernetics.
A whole new leg. It's got the thing of being able to actually step in somebody's reality and walk through it like they do, experience it the way they do specifically. The implications to me are immense. I mean, how far can it go? I mean, if you go into a complete, like a cyberspace model of some kind, in which the discussion about the mind and the interaction between the mind and the universe is a holographic phenomenon.
Yeah.
That sort of Marilyn, what's her name's, Marilyn Ferguson's been sort of monitoring that discussion in the brain news and stuff.
Yeah.
I remember one where the headline was a primary reality, a numerical realm or something like that.
Yeah.
And the idea that, I mean, for example, some hypothetical, the technology is getting smaller like this. Eventually, would be a thing that you put on, that you would wear that would translate all of the material out here into some other kind of language, possibly other visual language, so that things would look the way you look.
Wow.
So keep going. So I mean, right there, so he even brings up communication, type of communication, using it in the terms of the cybernetic system theory. He says, step into a cyberspace module. This is in 1991 or something.
Wow, yeah.
Long time ago. And at the beginning, there's another clip. They're saying, they're going to try to make it illegal. They're going to try to ban virtual reality. They're going to say it like LSD. The man is going to stop us from having fun. They literally say that, right? The man will stop us and try to ban it. But they're saying, so a cyberspace module, primary reality, secondary reality. Okay, you step into someone else's world, go beyond language, meta language. They start going into, but then he said one thing really interesting. He said, which this is something most people wouldn't catch. So, Marianne Williams, right? Marianne Williams is pushing the Course in Miracles, right?
Right.
Course in Miracles, which was a part of MKUltra sub-project.
Really?
Yes, absolutely, man.
Oh, I had no idea.
Wow. Yep. Totally part
How,
of the.
how do you know that? How
It's all there. It's you can read the actual documents. Yeah.
wow. I had also heard that it was supposedly channeled too, right? Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, we know it was channeled. It was channeled. Well, the book, like, so I did the whole thing. I read the whole book, years ago. Right?
I had a friend who was like totally A Course in Miracles. Like it's a nice formal book. It looks like well bound and everything, right?
Well, no, it literally, it was said it was channeled, right? So the thing is, it was done. We may go this that's a whole nother side topic, right? To go into this.
We talked about Joseph Smith,
so. MKUltra Center, channeled by this lady who was supposedly a total atheist and wrote it out. It has completely derealization module. First lesson, of Course in Miracle. Nothing I see means anything. There is no reality around me. Everything has only the meaning I think. Only my bad thoughts make bad reality around me. Everything is an illusion. I mean, it's a total deprogramming. It's a total derealization state based with a bit of Christianity. It's a very fully worked through text. It's not, I would, even though it's claimed to be channeled, I would highly doubt that. But anyways, so one thing he said very interesting. He talks about Marianne Williams is someone I've heard she's not people that know her personally. Oh, I don't get sued. I mean, saying she's not quite exactly the peace and love person she presents herself to be.
Presents to the public, right?
To the public, she's not going to offer or whatever. But what he said is she is mediating the module currently for about this primary reality information topic. So that's like a term, high level. This is someone you'd say Marianne Williams is out there selling her books or sharing God's love. You wouldn't say she's mediating a particular module based on these different reality modules. Primary reality one being totally numeric, numerological, just numbers, cyber.
Wow.
And he calls
that's why she runs for.
One.
That's why she runs for president and does everything. She just wants to be in the public, right?
But Jerry's talking about her as in a different role, right? Okay. When he says it's like that's her role behind the scenes, she's doing this. Primary reality one, which is only numbers, which is the cyber control grid, which is a transhuman control grid that's being descended upon all of humanity. Okay. I mean, it may sound like I'm making leaps here, but I'm not. It's just you have to listen very closely. The way he uses communication, he's using it in the terms of cybernetics, system theory, not as normally we'd use communication. He's using it. That just caught me. I didn't hear that before, but saying primary reality one, it's numeric, basically system code. And Marianne Williams is currently pushing this, mediating this module or something, which sounds like, you know what I mean? So this is almost the way the handlers are going to talk about what they're deploying on the masses, right? You would normally say that about. Okay, sorry. I hope I didn't freak out too much.
No, I'm just like blown away. I didn't know that this is part of MKUltra. That it was, because I just know people who've really like Course in Miracles is the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. Like I got into that. I was in college, right? My family member gave it to me, and I went through that whole thing. There was points where I think it was really good, but it definitely. Because it's like a module, right? You're supposed to go through every day. You have a different lesson. You read the lesson and you apply it all the time. You do this self-corrective. Nothing. This doesn't mean anything. This chair means nothing. This chair, there's no meaning except only meaning I've given. This pen doesn't mean anything. This human being is not a human being. It's just something I'm imagining. You're supposed to do that throughout the whole day. It's like a self-programming module. I feel really bad for people that get caught up in it, and then when you look at William Helen Schumann and all that direct connect, I mean, it's not like it seems like an MKUltra program. It is, for sure.
It is. It was done right at the time of the MKUltra things. I'm reading this right here. It was 1965 to 1972 is when it was written. So right around the time of all this stuff.
Yeah. And they were working, and I had, I know we're kind of, we're hitting sort of the time here. So maybe you want to say a few more things and I'll do like my big, like fireworks finale. If I can.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to try to get done with this audio? It's about 4 more minutes and then you can just wrap it up. We can do a part 4.
Yeah. Okay. But just play it. It's worth hearing. So let's play it.
material out here into some other kind of language, possibly other visual language, so that things would look the way you wanted them to. Reality would behave the way you wanted it to, whether it did or whether it really did or not. It's the question of what's real and what isn't starts to get real mushy right there. If everybody's experiencing completely subjective realities based on their own temperament or whatever they want, including however far you wanted to take it. Now, this as far as
Pause for her. Pause. So this clip is really, really important, right? So just to follow this, so this is coming, off of, okay, they're invoking rituals in small towns, invoking chaos. Now we're going into virtual reality. Fun is dangerous, right? Fun is dangerous. The man doesn't want you to have fun. Virtual reality. Oh, it's going to be like LSD. It's the new ultimate thing. Then they're talking about, fully cyber, completely constructed cyber realm. This is exactly what they're talking about. The new, everything is the Internet of Things, the Internet of Beings. This is the IOB. Now we've gone from that to saying we will develop going beyond any language, which means that, okay, this is very important to parse this out, right? That's, like I said, this guy's a smart son of a gun. He's not, he's highly intellectual,
Yeah.
It's almost like but so when we look at going beyond language, right? So there is, there is experience, right? Of course, we have to take, first of all, is danger bad? Is adventure bad? No. So we have to sort of pull apart some of these little traps, which are basically, it's sort of the belief says, but it's a trap. If you don't understand where they're coming from, you won't be able to unravel it, right? They think this is great. They don't think this is bad. They think this is wonderful. But so going beyond language, what they're talking about going beyond language is not really going beyond language to the experience. It's almost devolving to where you are completely, language is no longer shared between individuals and society. It's no longer a bridge. It's just, you're just in your own head. You're in your own complete subjective world. And this being the full world that will be imposed upon the whole planet of this total subjective space. Okay, play it from on, but that's what they're talking about. So listen to this. You can start this over again.
Nada's writing in the comments. He says, absolutely nailing it. This is a great interview. Thanks for bringing it. I can't wait to go back and watch the first two parts. So thanks, Nada. Nice comment. Let me play.
Away from something or getting towards something, like getting away from something if you're a ghetto person.
Yeah.
A nice soft experience like heroin,
Right.
The objection there seems to be the idea of getting away. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like what is it all about? So I see basic objection about going on with this virtual reality. If you take it for it, I mean, the whole thing is that it eliminates a lot of need for all of the other things that we put so much energy into all this time. Communication on every other level. On this, I mean, I'm a musician.
Right, they're smart.
Well, no, but see, they're talking about movement. So I think I did something with Sean the other day, but I was talking about this conditioning. We go back to the basic conditioning, right? Excitatory, inhibitory, nervous system, right? Pleasure and pain, away or towards, right? So we're talking about basic he's talking about mental conditioning, Pavlovian conditioning, stimulus operant response conditioning when he says that very clearly, because he says someone in the ghetto wants to go away from their world and they get a very soft experience like heroin, and people say it's bad to move away. He said that, right? He said,
right.
Go ahead and take heroin, and the man thinks it's bad because but talking about moving away, dissociating from reality. You're dissociating, and everyone says it's bad, right? And so we need to go beyond communication. He said many things we had before won't be necessary. You don't even need to be able to talk to people anymore. You'll be fine just floating in your own subjective soup, floating in your own, hallucinogenic, holographic, virtual reality world, just like, like that, with no more. You don't even need to talk to people anymore. He's saying these things we put so much, we don't need them anymore. We can just be in our, we'll keep landing. We'll be in our tubes. We'll be happy in our little vats.
It's Matrix, baby.
You live in the smart city, right? What's that different if you're in the smart city? You have to eat your friggin' bugs. You get to watch Klaus Schwab on your view screen every day. Good morning. Enjoy your bugs. You have 20 social credit points today. You can go
10 miles. You get miles of driving today.
You could have one hug and then oh no, right. you had negative thoughts, so you're not allowed to leave. But then you can go. You're in this bitterly cold apartment. There's no electricity for it's eco-friendly. You're eating bugs. It's you don't own anything. Your neighbor can just come and take your bicycle if they want. Seriously, that's what they say. You own nothing, right? But
right.
But you can put on you can just go into your little Neuralink, just like the guy, which Jerry says is a good thing, like the guy in the ghetto shooting up heroin. People say it's bad, but this is also a way or towards, right? So you have a negative response. This is also where, basic thing, this is basic psychological conditioning, pleasure or pain, right? So, you press the button, the red button, you get a treat. You press the green button, you get electric shock, right? But of course, if you're this is animalistic. This is almost, it's like, bioorganism level. You know what I mean? Just pleasure or pain. It's just a way or towards. It's like an electrical response. This is not developed. Yeah, we all have this. This is a basis, but we go beyond that, right? If it's only pleasure and you just sit there and just drink all day, every day, that's okay. It may feel good until you die of cirrhosis of the liver or until you get a DUI. You shoot up heroin. Oh, it feels good until you have an overdose, until your whole life is collapsed, because you're trying to escape from it into this fantasy world or this drug induced state that and then you amp that up 1,000 times, because even the junkie is still in the physical world, still has to go score, or the junkie, the whore has to sell her body. But in this, you can be in your little apartment. You're completely disconnected from all human life. You're just in this virtual reality, and you even lose the ability for language, which is the basis of what makes us human.
Right.
Okay, go ahead. And he's saying this is good. Go ahead.
Crazy.
I recognize that as a musician, there's a certain chauvinism attached to it, which is the thing of, well, I spent my time learning how to play. You didn't spend time learning how to play, therefore you're not a musician. It'll be the free channel, the consensus channel on your video, or your cable TV or whatever.
So that may be where we find out what humans are for.
It may take that to do it. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I can visualize something like that, where it's the input channel as well as the output channel, where you take from it, you give to it, and take from it at the same time. Yeah, like a free two-way kind of deal. And everybody would be constantly making decisions. Microsecond to microsecond.
Pause.
Wow.
Switching around.
Dude, he's literally talking about an externally programmed consensus reality that you are also an input into, and you're also an output. You're being controlled.
That would be changing the microsecond, right? So not only that, you would never be able to get out of it. It's like for a Christian, this is like the beast system.
But this they literally say new consensus, an externally programmed consensus reality. It's a channel. It talks about putting it on a channel, programming of the channel. And he's talking about the system processing required, which is what we're living through right now in our modern era, right? Is this not what is happening? Is this not what is being? What is 5G, dude? 6G. I mean, 6G is you're a cell. You are literally, it feeds off your biological energy, right? 6G. I mean, I saw some of 6G in 2020. Then I saw they did some study about human batteries powering the internet.
Right.
But the earlier stuff on 6G was talking about literally feeding off of your emotions, especially negative emotions. So it's like feeding off and generating power to create. It's not only an internet, it's going to be an internet that's implanted in your brain and shared. It's just like the hive mind experiments that they were conducting, with all the merry prankster youth who with Ken Kesey and Neil Cassidy were and some of the other leaders, Owsley, were dosing all these boys and girls from good suburban families. I'm sure there were some homeless or street children, but a lot of them were just kids from good families. They're supposed to probably sophomore year of college or whatever, right? And they're hanging out on this bus getting dosed. Now Jerry's talking about a master control computer that's going to upload all of reality.
Right.
It's okay.
That you're going to be a part of, that your information is going to go into, and it'll change on a dime, right?
Okay, would we finish something?
Doing stuff of its own, so you'd enter yet another random element in there, and then see what comes through the spaces. And my feeling is that there is a coherence there, but it's not recognizable through normal frameworks. You need a hyper normal framework. Yes. So that is you need to jump to hyper normalcy.
Well, there are always a few people who are hyper normal.
Absolutely, that's exactly right. I think everybody experiences them here and there. That's all. It's just we don't have good language for speaking about them, really. And
that's right. Well, but that's what a lot of the semiotic soup that the deadhead culture has. There's a lot of
semiotics. Okay, I mean, so literally, okay, I almost out of time. We just leave it there.
That's all right. We can go over, but
okay, we'll just I'm getting the
let's get through this audio. I mean, there's a lot here. Like they're like scholars. They're like intellectual scholars.
He just mentioned semiotic language system theory of sign and meaning. So this is psycholinguistic talk, semiotic system theory in the deadhead semiotic system.
Incredible.
System of meaning. This is psycholinguistics. This is military mimetics also. He just talked about military mimetics. How many people know semiotic system theory, right?
1 in 10,000, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. I won't interrupt.
How many people know semiotic? Just the word semiotic, right?
Yeah. Okay, go.
Beings anatomically for several 100,000 years, wandering around, hunting and gathering.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, at the same time, they started painting in caves.
Right.
They started multiplying. So what this paleontologist that I quoted has the theory that the first art in caves were really psychedelic experiences.
Yeah.
And the reason that they were is so that because the tribal encyclopedia, the amount of information that people needed to know in order to move to a new way of life, suddenly increased.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good notion. Yeah, the point is there's more information now than you can pass along comfortably in an oral tradition. Say a strictly speaking culture has a problem.
Nobody's delineating. Nobody's concentrating.
Right.
There's a lot of extraneous stuff, like for instance the satellites that measure the atmosphere.
Yeah.
There's billions and billions and billions of bytes of data. Only maybe 2% of which are actually useful. They don't know what the rest are for. They don't know what good they are.
That's right. The people want to play through that.
Fill up tabs.
That's Owsley.
Yeah. And anyway, who knows?
Or keep going, sorry.
Oh, sorry. We got 36 minutes left.
For sure.
Seconds left.
How
Sorry.
complex or how uncomplex the ancient people's lives were. They may have been in many ways as absolutely full and complicated as anything anyone knows.
I don't think there's any reason to assume they weren't. I mean, if you look at some of these cultures now, and there's still a few of them.
No, that's true. See, but that's what I mean about the singularity.
Yeah.
That
Singularity.
The entire human race faced a singularity when one small group discovered technology.
Right.
We can live a different way.
Right.
Eventually.
Right. That's it. That's all we can do.
I've got other more. So some of that's the real heavy touchdown of that. So what they're basically talking about. Okay, semiotics. Talking about human beings have been anatomically the same for 100,000 years, right? And you're talking about the singularity, right? So in a sense, they're using the psychedelic LSD. It was almost like a model for the virtual reality. But what's missing, the next thing he goes into is saying that now we have to evolve and become cybernetic beings. And it's a becoming singularity. So they're saying, which is unfortunately, the next clip, I didn't have that there. But basically, I'm sure, I'll play that next time, but I'm sure you can believe me. You can see that. I mean, they're talking in detail about and justifying. And so they're talking about tribal, right? Tribal consciousness. So it's a new tribal consciousness. There's many people have said, right? The internet age, we're almost going back to an oral culture. People don't read anymore. People can't intake information through words. I mean, through the printed page. And there's been many studies on this, right? Where there's so many abilities that come with literacy, right? Actually being able to read and understand, including like empathy, being able to plan ahead, things you wouldn't necessarily think are tied in with the skill of reading, but they are, right? But also, so reading, like with books, you can connect back to the ancient Greeks, right? You can connect, but he's talking about removing. I mean, you're not even going to need to have your own language. It's going to be like your own sort of personal psychedelic language is going to be translated to someone else, and then you can step and you can share the other person's mind. It's all going to be mediated by this vast super consensus reality computer, and it's going to modify your body, which is going to be the next singularity or the next evolution of the human being, which is, we're talking about
that's a nightmare. Isn't that a nightmare? Like you have no autonomy.
No, yeah, but this is what they're, you can see they're enthusiastic about it.
Oh, it's crazy.
It's like, it's almost like they're hanging out there. I mean, I tell you the truth, they sound more articulate than Elon Musk and Klaus Schwab in a lot of ways.
Good point. Really is true. It really is amazing. I mean, but they are very well read. This is Crowley doing the rites of Eleusis. This is an actual picture. So that's from September. I think it was around the turn of the century where he did it, but it was over like 5 or 6 days. And there's actually a handbill that still is in existence. Actually, a book. I think this book is detailing those rites, but there's a handbill that looks like this.
Wow.
Where he did it over, a span of 2 weeks. They redid it, so it gets kind of confusing. There's some people who did it in 1990s or something like that, but the original was like, back then. There's some pictures around.
Yeah, and just for that kind of danger, right? That he's invoked. I mean, Crowley, like they had his place. What was it out in? Was it Spain? I believe, though, that his little hermitage or
that was at Cefalù on the island of Sicily.
Yeah, Sicily. Yeah, but mafia place, right? Sicily, no.
Yeah, definitely.
That's racist. I'm sorry. Just kidding. But
this is it. So it was 1910 at Caxton Hall, Westminster.
Oh, so that's, I mean, so this is, one thing that he did, right? Crowley really summoned in a lot of these things, right? He did these, you mentioned like the evocation, invocation, invoke, like there was that famous thing with was it a chronozone or whatever, this demon that he went to Algeria with that poet, some
Newberg,
who just went insane, right? After doing that, he literally was just like Elon Hubbard.
He was no longer the same person after being with Crowley.
Well, it's soul cracking, right? Elon Hubbard used to do that. The Scientology founder guy, Elon Hubbard. Soul cracking is when you usually with a woman, right? You almost really debased, like Hugh Hefner. If you ever watch that stuff with this Hugh Hefner, some of the really debauched like sexual stuff he put the women through. That's soul cracking, where they literally, it's almost like you shatter. L. Ron Hubbard's son was talking about this. That's how I heard about it. But basically, the soul cracking is like you harvest their soul's energy.
Right. That's what Crowley did with his Scarlet Women. He really kind of used them as energy vectors or something, and then discarded them when he was done. Branded them with the literal like a cow with the mark of the beast, his own mark. And then there was a girl. It wasn't Lila Waddell. If you looked at some of these women before and after Crowley, they're usually beautiful, and at the end they look like they saw 10,000 ghosts. Their lips are very narrow.
Oh,
they look terrified. Yeah, Lila Waddell.
It's like those meth pictures, right? Before.
Yeah, it's almost like that. It's like they're done, and Crowley would just discard them like the most cruel thing. But Hubbard's soul cracking, there's a description of it in my book, Children of the Beast.
Okay.
When it gets graphic, he would take a woman and lie on top of her and stare into her eyes. They're awake. I mean, engage in kind of in sexual magic. I mean, I don't want to get too graphic. He would shove his non-erect penis into them and stare at them for hours. and that was part of the soul cracking ritual. So if you're a woman, like, what the F is going on? They're just totally feared, terrified, and that's how he would draw his energy. Like, there's a woman who actually told her story of that's what Hubbard did. So they're monsters, yeah.
Well, just to throw just a couple points just to tie this in just a little bit is that so Hubbard, right, connected with who? Jack Parsons, connected with who? OTO, right? And Robert Heinlein, who used to get invited to, Jack Parsons, LA jet set, sex parties, occult ritual type of things. Robert Heinlein was hanging out there with Jack Parsons and all those guys with L. Ron Hubbard. And then writing and then so we won't hit this today, but you find a lot of this mind control stuff, or even MKUltra. There is a little bit of bubbling occult stuff, here and there. Organizations, even that hypnotist guy who was, they say, Oswald potentially hypnotized Oswald, so he was connected with
David Ferry.
Yeah, he was connected with this like Catholic church that did like satanic sacrifices or whatever, and so, whatever, all over there. And
he might have had a sexual relationship with Oswald when he was 15, when Oswald was 15. Like, because that's what Ferry was a pederast.
Yeah.
So he liked to be around, that's how he was a pre-Catholic priest and then got defrocked, but he had a compulsion with kids, like boys, like teenage boys.
And that's one of the biggest things for, that especially sexual abuse at a young age. That's, the MPD or this, or multiple personalities, or creating potentiality for those. Yeah. But then just one last thing. So of course that the ritual in Algeria I think it was the 60th anniversary of that ritual. Guess who? Public enemy number one, hiding out from the FBI, Timothy Leary, right on the run. He goes to the desert in Algeria, recreates a ritual, then flies back to the United States, somehow gets through customs, is right there on the eve of that ritual, on the anniversary, when at Altamont, Sympathy for the Devil.
Oh, wow. Was that close? I never made that connection.
Was thrown in and standing on stage with the ritual human sacrifice.
Wow.
Meredith Hunter, or whatever his name was.
Yeah, he was at it's just not random at all. He was at the same oasis that Crowley was at. It was called Boo Sada.
But again, this guy is like, he is supposedly escaped from jail, right? How's he flying back in and going to this rock concert?
It doesn't make any
but he's standing on stage
right
during the ritual, and he invoked that. And the whole thing with Crowley, of course, is like, even like Jimmy Page, buying the house at Loch Ness, like supposedly he was never able to close the porthole, they say, right? So he would summon a demon, but he couldn't do it. So, but that you pronounce it correctly, the Corona, whatever is Corona.
Corazon, I think is what it is.
Corazon.
Guardian of the Abyss, supposedly.
Yeah, but that's opening the abyss. That's like CERN, right? That's opening the abyss of the age. That's like opening the portholes, right? That's like, and then to reinforce that ritual by Timothy Leary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never made that connection.
Yeah. So it's there. I mean, it's certainly possible, to make connections that are, guilt by association or tenuous, but I don't think these are that tenuous, when you.
No, it's not. Leary said that he was carrying on Crowley's tradition. There's a video of him saying, I'm carrying it on. And he actually, after he was done with Busad, he said, the synchronicities between myself and Crowley are inescapable. We are both, he felt like he was the one who carries it on. Like the Book of the Law says, there shall be one who comes after. So I think Leary probably thought that. Hubbard definitely thought he was the one who came after in the Book of the Law. So he was definitely trying to carry on Crowley's tradition. And he took it to a next level that Crowley could never imagine, because Crowley never made money. But Hubbard turned into control. And I mean, his son said Scientology was just black magic spread out over a longer period of time. So Hubbard really was something else. Yeah.
Well, he really none of those guys, like kind of the sketchy, like the Baba Yad, where, because Hubbard he got in some trouble, but sometimes there's a sheep dipping, right? You get dishonorably discharged. But, like Jerry Garcia working in a missile silo, top secret security clearance, suddenly dishonorable discharge and becomes a rockin' hippie, playing in the band Warlocks. Their first
and that's Hubbard. Hubbard shows up. He has this thing. He gets discharged, and then Dianetics, I think, was 1948, and Scientology was 1950. So sometime right after the war, he's with Parsons, and I think Fletcher Prudy said that Hubbard's war record is fake. There's something else going. That is not what really happened. He said that Hubbard was sheep dipped, and it would make perfect sense because he was a science fiction writer. And I think he was fairly well traveled. He seemed to I forgot what his parent. I mean, he knew he was in D.C. That's where he went to. He had terrible grades at George Washington, but that's where he came across a copy of the Book of the Law. So he knew the Book of the Law before World War II. So he's a very, very strange cat. And I'm shocked, just from this interview, that A Course of Miracles was MKUltra. And I've asked questions to other Scientologists, like, where is the government connection between Crowley and Scientology? Like, where is he getting this information? How does he know how to do this? And it's a lot. Scientology is probably, now that you told me about A Course in Miracles, it's fairly similar, I guess, in the sense, because you are self-actualizing. Like, you pay for this weird training with the soup cans, but you do a lot of exercises yourself. So you don't have to go to the Scientology center to do it. So you do these things where you like sit across from somebody and swear at them, and you do all kinds of weird assists. I mean, it's so that's how you can. It's kind of like a grade system, kind of like the OTL. Where you can move up the grades. You have to fulfill certain things, but you do it yourself. Yeah, it's really so. I think you're kind of conditioning yourself in Scientology to not take critical judgment. So that's why so many Scientologists are you can talk to them and they'll just glaze over. Is because they've actually been conditioned to glaze over when somebody questions Scientology.
Which is that's it's literally it's a mind. It's you're being mind programmed. And so the Scientology is really important in terms of development of a lot of techniques that you can see, moving in and out and moving around in that whole area, the rite of Saturn. So all these were rituals, and some of these things, again, he had his theater, right? He had his theater of the Beetle or whatever, and people would go and think it's like watching a play. They don't know they're actually being in a actual ritual.
Right.
Also has to do this. The rite of Jupiter. They're all. Is that
got it all? Yeah. So he did it over a span of a week. So he had all these rite of Saturn, rite of Jupiter, rite of Mars, Sol, Venus, Mercury, rite of Luna, which is the moon.
And then you've got, of course, the hand gestures. What is it? The help supposed to be semaphore is actually Crowleyan magical working. Right. Symbols.
Right. He's got it all. He did all the hand gestures. He had all the weird, clothing and all that stuff. He was really something else. He was crazy. But yeah.
But again, it's I'll just maybe leave with this thought is that you look at the Smithsonian, the Folkways Smithsonian catalog with all the alchemical symbols, right? In taking a lot of some pretty dark music, and then you pick the one you say Robert Johnson, right? He was the blues guitarist. There's a movie Crossroads, Ralph Macchio that came out where Steve Vai played Satan. But Crossroads, Robert Johnson, it was Rolling Stones. It was Eric Clapton, especially. Eric Clapton is kind of the guitar purist, right? Robert Johnson is it. Rolling Stones, Robert Johnson. So he sold his soul to the devil, right? He sold to the devil. He was certainly a good artist, for the few things he did, but he literally was known to have sold the soul to the devil, where he did some kind of occult thing. And originally he sucked ass, right? He would get thrown out of clubs because he was so bad musician. But there's 100 other amazing, or at least 50, 60, a dozen country blues guitarists that are as good, if not far surpassing Robert Johnson in technique, overall musicality. Why was he chosen as the archetype of all rock, Robert Johnson? No.
Right.
And now if you're into mysticism, right? You want to get into spirituality, you want to get into occult stuff. Okay, say someone like Manly P. Hall, okay, Even, Blavatsky isn't that bad, or there's all kinds of different, occult things, if you want to get into spirituality, right? There's many things. Why choose Aleister Crowley, who was an absolutely diabolical, evil human being, completely founded on the lowest basis, whether you believe or not in spiritual energies, but really, just being completely selfish, right? You don't care about anybody else, use anybody, but completely evil. With a record of being totally evil, right? How come all these people were following Crowley? You know what I mean? Like, why? The Beatles,
Some kind of dark attraction, right?
Yeah, but he's still. From Ozzy Osbourne, Mr. Crowley. Like, this guy's still. How many people are forgotten? Why don't people follow Rasputin? We go, play something. Like, show these women. Can you make that
right? So that's Lila Waddell. That's the mark of the beast that Crowley put on her chest, branded on her chest, and she looks beautiful. She's kind of exotic. I think she's half like Maori or something. That's her before, and this is her after. Like, she looks kind of haunted and bent out of shape.
Dude, she looks like a ghost. She looks like she's possessed by a demon, dude.
Yeah, and so this is another one. This is not Lila Waddell. Her name I can't remember right now, but she was cute. That's Lila Waddell. This is Leah Hersig. Her name was Leah Hersig, so that's her before. Look at Leah Hersig after Crowley. Let's do Leah. She got branded too. So that's her. This is her after Crowley. Look at her face, man. Like haunted. Before, cute, young. Look at the eyes. Kind of nice eyes. After, done. Thin-lipped, haunted, man. Like she saw freaking 10,000 ghosts.
And then, also, she's posing for a picture, so she, probably trying to put her best. My God, she's devastated.
Yeah, she looks devastated.
But it's like people.
But she got it tried. She like paint me as a naked. She said stuff to Crowley like really creepy. Like she was ready to go all in with Crowley, and she did for like 5 years, and then he abandoned her. And then she just kind of got lost from history. Like nobody really knows what happened to her. This is her on the right. Anyway, so those are just like tragic. Every person who's associated with Crowley ends in tragedy. Even Crowley himself, like nobody ever comes out like, right, there's deaths and madness. And he admitted to it. Like he would tell people, he told one guy, Lance Sieve King in like the south of France, everybody who crosses me is either dead, poor, or in a mental institution. Like he bragged about it. Like that's what
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, you saw that when you were scrolling through that picture of the crossroads. They have a big look at that icon there.
Yeah, that was it. That was the crossroads where it actually supposedly happened.
It happened, but look at they put up. It's not just like there's a big like a memorial there for that.
Right. Like it's a place to go to. Like
it's
a travel location. Yeah, there it is.
It's part of the rock. It's been embedded in the culture or the ritual, right? Yeah. And if you look at the way the Grateful Dead talk about this, it's the semiotics, right? So 61 and 49. Well, let me look at that a little closer. It's kind of a weird.
Which picture? This one?
I just want to see what the thing looks like. I may have to. There may be some weird.
It's south of Memphis. I think it's like a couple 100 miles or 200 miles south of Memphis, Tennessee.
Maybe I'll look at that. There's something there, but still, it's like it's a little bit. Because there's lots of great Bucka White. Who knows Bucka White? Lemon Jefferson.
I've never heard that name. I don't even know who that is.
Well, he's great. He's one of my favorite, the country blues guys. But these people are totally forgotten. You know what I mean? But Robert Johnson, people still know Robert Johnson to this day, right? And it's when you like say for me when I was learning guitar, you go through. You got to learn how to play Crossroads by Clapton, and then you get into the Crossroads mythology, and then you Rolling Stones, and you're like, and I try to learn Robert Johnson, but he has a pretty limited music, but there's that song like Hellhound on My Trail, right? So that has that song, his voice sounds like the eyes of the women, the Crowley Scarlet Women.
Right, yeah.
It's got that like
creepy, eerie. Yeah.
But not like, AC/DC, like Hell's Bells, party anthem, more like there's really a hellhound on his trail, and he's
Right.
tormented and haunted, you know, like, so it comes through, and it's not, you know, it's, you know what I mean? It seems like it's not entertainment. It seems like this guy's really tormented.
Guys are
So
done.
why you want
By
to
the way,
model?
I went down to the crossroads, got down on my knees. What's the lyric?
I went down. I can
Not
pluck up my guitar, play it. Maybe it's
on my
went down to the
knees.
crossroads, fed on my knees. Asked, oh boy, will you take old Bob if you please?
Yeah.
You can't run, you can't hide. But there's Hellhound on my trail, which is a little later, which is, you know, and that's but this connects with all the Voodoo, you know, Voodoo, Santeria, you know, that some of that stuff that survived. I don't know if there's a,
I guess there's Clapton's lyrics. Cream,
but
all
that's
the same one.
why don't they showing Robert Johnson's lyrics, you know, because it's written by Robert Johnson. But
Crossroad Blues, that was it. Fell down. Ask the Lord have mercy, save poor Bob, if you please. Yeah. You can run. You can run. Tell my friend boy Willie Brown, you can run. I believe I'm sinking down. Interesting.
yeah, so but the Lord above, what Lord?
Yeah.
Right?
Save poor Bob, if you please.
Well, which Lord? Right? Is he talking? You know, is it?
Yeah. Well, good question.
Look at Hellhound on my trail.
Okay, let's do it.
But that song, you know, there's not much there in the song itself, but it's the legend and the act, the ritual, right? We just play it, maybe.
Let me see if I play it. We can go out listening to Hellhound on my trail. How about that?
All right. Oh, y'all say something.
I got to keep moving. I got to keep moving. Good falling down that hill. 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 And the day keeps on running. But hell out on my trail, hell out on my tail, hell out on my tail. If the demons fill the sea, if the demons fill the sea, and the marbles fill the sea. If the demons fill the sea, and the marbles fill the sea, oh, wouldn't we have a time, baby? Oh, I would need my little sweet ride just to pass the time away. To pass the time away. You think I'm hot for bottom, around my door, all around my door. You think I'm hot for bottom, around your daddy's door. It keeps me with around and right on. Every old place I go, every old place I go. I can tell the wind rising, the leaves swimming on the trees, swimming on the trees. I can tell the wind rising, leaves swimming on the trees. Oh, I need my little sweet woman, and to keep my company. My company.
So
That was it. Hans, how do you want to bookend this? Do you have anything you want to add? Anything? Your website is your full name, right?
HansHunter.com. Yeah, still trying to get that updated. But yeah, HansHunter.com. musicmindcontrol.wordpress.com. And you know, shoot me an email. I'll have some products up hopefully when I get this I try to get a web design out in India, dude. They're charging me $12,000 for a website. I'm like, dude.
Oh, you got
yeah, you're not, you know. So, anyways, we'll see. But yeah,
no, you need to go on to Fiverr. Try Fiverr. You can get a website for cheap.
okay, all right. If I have Fiverr, sounds good. Yeah,
Fiverr.com. Yeah,
yep.
And it'll be a set price. You won't have to like deal with somebody far away. And the other thing is that these guys have already done work, so you already know that they've been in the Fiverr system. So,
okay,
if they don't get those high amount of 5-star reviews, then don't move on to the next one. But you should be able to get a very quality one cheap. But again, Hans Uter, thanks so much. This was episode 3 of what you call it. Let's see, I called it MK Ultra for the masses.
Fine. You're the boss.
Well, no, I should have used your title. That was a mistake on my part.
That's okay, man. You know, you're in the top 0.05%, man. You know, so I just I cede to your judgment. So.
Well, it's just easier, I think, to what was your full title? Yours was MK Ultra. Let's go back to the beginning here. MK Ultra, music is the weapon from Manson to the Technotronic control state. I like your title much better. So the next one. All right, man. Thanks so much for your time. Really great interview. Amazing stuff. I had no idea about A Course in Miracles being part of a program, U.S. program. That's incredible.
No, that shows you how deep that stuff goes, man. You know, like thinking about how much there was a huge amount of resources put into this. It wasn't, you know.
Yeah, it wasn't like a small thing. It was millions and millions of dollars and spread all throughout universities and some of the smartest people ever. You know, all the doctorates and stuff like that. So, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Let's do it again soon.
You're welcome, William. Thank you.
Cheers.